So this podcast is us sharing our journey of entrepreneurship. That's a tongue tie.
Hey everybody, Chris here.
And I'm Linda.
Welcome to the Second Act Entrepreneur. Basically, today, Linda and I are sitting in the world famous Letter and Leaf bookstore here in central New York. Thanks, honey. And by world famous, I mean,
That's your dream,
that's my dream.
to make it world famous.
And multiple
Yeah.
locations,
Yes.
world famous.
Yes.
Think like if Barnes and Noble, Half Price Books, or something along those lines, they had a baby that was better than their parents. That's what the Letter and Leaf is.
All right. So this podcast is us sharing our journey of entrepreneurship. That's a tongue tie. But we are not business majors. We've never been business majors. We don't know a lot of things about what we're doing. But here in the second act of our life, the second part of our journey, we're trying something completely new and we're kind of excited about it. So we thought we would share this journey with you of all the ups and downs and me learning how to speak English and all of that kind of stuff.
But I will say though, even though technically we didn't take like business class or major in that in terms of like university studies, both of us have been involved with businesses obviously our whole life. I mean, you get a job, you're a part of a business, and you see what you like and what you don't like, and that feeds into kind of the next chapter of your life. We're in this chapter of our life called the Second Act Entrepreneur, and one of the great probably successes and mistakes that I've made in terms of this second act entrepreneur is to get a bulldog to be at the store with us. And so when you see the camera like moving
Knock over,
around, or
yeah.
you hear
There
like,
she is.
there
That's
she is,
her. Yep.
lapping of water, or like suddenly a gigantic, land hippo jumps upon us. That's Agatha Christie, our English bulldog. She barks with a British accent, and the crowd loves her. So, long story short, this is Agatha, and she's definitely a sweetie. We're grateful for her. So, hey, how are ya? Thank you. We appreciate you. I know, little Agatha. You too. Speaking of businesses, in our area, there's a local newspaper, the Queens Central News. And so every week I get given copies that I get a handout to people who come into the store. And honestly, it reminds me of when I was a kid, just the smell of the ink.
Oh, I know.
I love that, actually.
It's not, yeah, I think it's a rarity. How many small villages still actually print newspapers? That's
Right.
pretty amazing.
It
really
is. And that's the feel that a lot of people have here locally, is like, how many small villages have a used bookstore? They've all closed. So when we talk about the second act entrepreneurial kind of adventures, again, we're not coming at it like we're such experts in how to necessarily do all business things, but we have done businesses our whole life, especially the last 30 years doing public speaking, a business that basically is marketing and pushing out me to do what I love: sharing, talking, telling stories, talking about faith.
All right. So what are we talking about today, though? Right?
Today,
we don't need to give your resume.
Oh, that's a good point. That's a good point. And that's for the next one.
So we're going to talk today about, in this journey of building businesses, these new businesses for us that are out of our wheelhouse, this idea of treating these businesses like business and not like a hobby.
Oh yeah.
And this is a slow revelation for me anyway. For you, the part of the Letter and Leaf being the bookstore, you signed a lease. So right away you had bills. This is a business. It needs to generate money in order to keep the doors open. But my side of the business, the leaf part, the herbal part, I definitely have struggled with dealing with this or approaching this as a hobby. And somewhere along the way, there's a shift that says, no, this is a business. So,
Hmm.
that's kind of
Yeah.
the topic.
Well, I think that's a great way to begin. If you were to look at just even my life before marriage, I have been obsessed with books my whole life. In fact, that's kind of the reward system I think that my family set up, was that we're going to go to the library, and especially with my father, to have like a respite from the regularity of chores, responsibilities, work. We would go to the bookstore and to like Haagen-Dazs and have an ice cream there in St. Paul, Minnesota. So for me, I think I always realized the bookstore is a special thing, and books are special. And so my whole life, I've continued that collection journey. But there's a difference from being a collector, somebody who is acquiring, or some might say hoarding books, to a person who is selling books. And by the way, I never see, I both thought and imagined about like being and owning a bookstore my whole life, and yet I couldn't imagine selling my books. I mean, the two worlds, the obsession and the clutching of the books with the releasing and selling of books, they don't often go hand in hand. And I don't think I had reconciled that in my brain even. But probably a couple years ago, in this neck of the woods, central New York, we went to a place called Berry Hill Books, and I love that guy's place. It's literally an old barn. It's been in the family forever. And once a year, he does these big sales, and I was there basically acquiring major portions of his barn. And I asked him a question. The question I asked was like, don't you feel sad getting rid of your books? Like, don't you worry that you're going to be getting rid of something that you want? And he said to me, I'll see him again. That's what he said. I'll see him again. And I thought, that's a that's a pretty good way to think about it. I'll see him again. Agatha's like, you're gonna see me again. Um, so I'll see him again. And the thing about that for me that really resonated was that's true. Like I could get rid of some books. Then couple that with you, where you said basically, I don't want to deal with all these books uh, after you die. And I was thinking, well, okay, I, I didn't put that on my to-do list. So, but I suppose that's true. There would be a lot of books for people to go through if I passed away. And then she was like, you'll be at home fondling your books. You might as well be at a store fondling your books. So we did. So we moved from that obsession and that love and that passion for books and the dream of, well, maybe one day I'll have a bookstore too. Let's sign a lease. And now we're not doing a
Right, right,
hobby. This
right.
is it.
Right. I think that's a good. When I'm thinking about this topic today, I wasn't necessarily thinking how really the overarching idea here is that we took your, I wouldn't say collecting books as a hobby, but definitely an obsession to, and that was a big shift for you, going from I'm going to collect and collect and collect books to, oh wow, I love watching people buy these books. Of course, you have collected books in the process of having a bookstore. We have, I thought maybe we would empty your house. No, we haven't. We just have collected more in the store. But that's a big shift, going from this is what I love doing to I'm going to make this into a business. Yeah.
Right. Well, I do think like if you're like a collector of something, but for me it was books. Okay, so here's a good example. So Stephen King, The Talisman, and Peter Straub. So so let's say this is my copy, which by the way it is. It's in the store. I like the copy, but in my mind, what I'm thinking is, but I want a hardcover, and not just a hardcover, like a first edition, first printing hardcover. Once then you make the trade, and now you have the hardcover. What do you want? Well, then there are special editions that come out with certain publishing companies, and man, if you could get a signed Talisman, not just by Stephen King, but with Peter Straub, who's passed away, well, then let's go. But you don't want just that. You would also then want to make sure that you have the second in the series, and then the third one, which by
Okay.
the way is
Okay.
coming out. Do you see?
Okay.
So what I'm saying, and the reason
So,
I'm saying all of that is that as a collector, you realize, okay, well, I could let this go because now I have the hardcover. I'll let that go. Now I have the first edition, first printing. I'll let that go when I have it. Now it's signed. And like some of those I wouldn't even let go, but let's move on. The point is that what do I do with all of those that I've let go? And now that I have the ultimate, like, you know, that incredible addition that I'd been so longing for. And uh, reluctantly, I started using an online selling app a little bit. And then I realized, what if I just did duplicates? Because I do have a tendency to buy the same book more than once. Not often, but occasionally. So if I have duplicates, I could sell. And it was that beginning.
I feel like you got lost in this.
I love talking about
I
this, but
know.
listen,
Okay, do I
I
need to be here?
not for this part. What I did was I started creating this bin system A through Z, and I would put the duplicates according to the author last name. And when I sold it online, I would be like, all right, I have to dig through that tub. So when we sign the lease, boy, that's when things really changed.
But okay, so even though you have a lease and you have bills to pay here, you have people that you are working for you. Um, I still think there's been a continual shift. You still have to continue to deepen this reality of this being a business.
Yeah.
Like understanding that, oh, I can't just be willy-nilly with receipts, right? Or I can't, I have to actively, I think this is probably still a difficulty, is like, how do I take it to the next step in terms of marketing, like, and not letting details fall through the cracks. I think that's still a struggle for you in general, is that how do I be businessy and professional with some of the things that will actually take us to another step,
Right.
Right.
Well, and the difference for me is it's not just me anymore. It's not just me doing a side passion and obsession. It's not just me saying, let me make enough money to buy more books, which, by the way, would certainly have been, part of the cadence of my thinking. In fact, I would travel around doing speaking events, and I would buy extra suitcases at thrift stores just so I could fill them up with books that I acquired at other thrift stores and bookstores. But now the difference for me was when I decided to hire Madeline, our daughter, as a actual employee. And I knew that for her as a mom, so I knew that I needed to provide her with actually a fair and regular wage. Once that happened, my mentality, because you could own a bookstore and obsess about it and just make enough money to pay the bills, and it's ultimately like it's a glorified rental space for a
Right.
storage unit,
Right.
so to speak, with windows.
I
But
think in some ways, though, that's how you started out imagining it to be. That like this was, you're going to sit here and you're going to be covered, surrounded by books all around you. You're going to be this little man sitting behind the thing, and people are going to come in and you're just going to talk about books. I think that's how, because whenever we'd go to used bookstores, that's kind of what you imagined. You wanted that. But quickly you realize that you don't, not only can you not, but you don't want to spend every waking moment in the store, and that you wanted to push out the generosity and hire our daughter and hire somebody else who could use the money. And here you've hired a third person who's like, hey, I think this would be good for them, right? You're not looking at, as much as you do need to make this a money making thing, it is also ministry for you. But so I think that, again, that you imagine this is how I'm going to be, and now you've pressed this out to be something more than just this little hermit sitting behind a
right, I do
pile of
think
books.
in some ways the job or the business demands that you respond accordingly. So if you're approaching something and it's your obsession, your passion, maybe you collect trains, or maybe you have a great passion for whatever, fill in the blank with whatever that is. The difference becomes so evident once you have the regularity of bills and the regularity of people that you're responsible for.
Right. And so now I'm going to shift to me.
Oh, good. Yeah.
Let's talk about me. Um, because this is a big point for me too. As the leaf part of the Letter and Leaf, the herbal business, creating herbal products, there's been growth in this for me as I realize what sells, what doesn't sell, what are people interested in, and so we expanded that into an antique mall, because here in the bookstore it just gets lost in all this mess. So how can we expand this into the antique mall? But there was a moment for me recently when we were on that trip to New Jersey, right? And we were there to do emceeing for a conference, and somebody there knew that I sold herbal stuff, and they said, "Are you going to bring some of your products to sell? Because I'd like to buy some." And I thought, okay, yeah, sure, I guess I can do that. The thinking in my head, who's this person? They could just tell me what they want, and I could ship it to them. Like nobody's going to want to buy this stuff, right? And there was a moment where I almost was like, it was going to take me, and I was going to have to take an extra effort to go to the antique mall to grab my product in order to pack it for the trip. And I almost thought, I don't want to do this. I don't want to make the hassle. I'm not going to do this. I'll just tell her what I have and I can mail it to her. But there was a little thought in my head that said that this is not a hobby, Linda.
Mm.
This is a business. Like, if you want this to be a business, then you got to be inconvenienced and run over and get your product in order to transport it to New Jersey to sell. Like, I have to actually not, I have to take this seriously. And so I did. I packed up stuff and we went there and I almost sold out. And so that was a huge lesson for me that, okay, maybe people do want to buy my things. That's kind of cool. Uh, and it's every time I have moments like that where I'm like, oh my gosh, I actually am selling products, it makes
Mm.
me think, okay, this is a real thing. But your point to having bills, I have rent space to pay for at this antique mall. I need to
Right.
keep making products in order to pay that rent. I have upcoming fairs to do. I need to keep making products. But what the problem is, to make these products, they're expensive. I have to buy the containers, I have to buy the supplies, I have to do all this stuff. And all I see are the bills growing of the expenses growing. Like, oh my gosh, I have spent this much this month on supplies. But the potential income from that is, this much. It's a lot more. But I still had in this hobby mentality. I'm afraid to take that next step of, I need to get out there and actively sell this. I need to be at craft fairs. I need to be taking my product places in order to sell it, because otherwise this huge supply of product is just wasted, just sitting there wasting.
I mean, in a
So,
lot of ways, you're playing with that principle of supply and demand. But what a lot of people don't talk about is that the initial supply costs a lot of money.
yeah,
Like at the startup of anything, a
right.
startup business, a startup homesteading, startup whatever, takes not just financial investment, which is significant at times, but also an emotional and even a physical investment. When we got the space, not only is there a financial investment, but we had to completely renovate the whole infrastructure, add shelves, moving books over. It was a physical toll and emotional, because you open the door and maybe people come in, maybe they don't come in. You've invested like yourself into this product, into this idea, and now is the demand gonna satisfy right, the investment in that supply?
Right, but I think it is the mental shift of, this is business, and that meant that a financial risk throws you over. It needs to inspire you to take it seriously, right? For me,
Right.
it is all of those supplies sitting in my kitchen that needs to be, sold and gotten rid of. That inspires me to get out there and to say, okay, this is more than a hobby. I need to be serious with this. I need to make the effort of making a TikTok shop. I need to take the effort of doing social media, of doing websites, the things that maybe I'm like, I don't know about this. But in the end, I believe in my products, and I have had some success. People positively encouraging me that these are good, so keep making them. Then okay, so maybe I'm going to keep going and doing this, you know
Well, one of the things that I was thinking about is that often if you hear people talk about startup businesses and making money and all of that, that it usually can be whatever, 3 to 5 years before you start seeing a real profit, which is super hypothetical. And it's an interesting number and an idea. It's out there when you're thinking about business, but when you do it, and especially for someone who's like, I'm starting our first like official retail or first brick and mortar business in my 50s. like you're not sure that you have the 3 to 5 years to, invest in something without seeing the profit. I mean, there's a big challenge of how do I walk this tightrope and balance, right, the supply and then the potential demand. Is there a demand? It's a little bit of a risk. What's good for us is that for the first year for the store, we ended in the black. So we did not have debt, which was a miracle, right? For a first store, like for a first business like that, that was remarkable. But my investments were super, super low. And I try to get the cadence of what was right. I think as we have expanded now the leaf portion of the letter and leaf a lot more this year, what we're recognizing is to keep that little, investment now functioning, and it's becoming a bigger investment functioning. What do we have to do now to help that supply that we're creating content and creating materials meet the demand? Because there is a demand.
There is, and but that is in my like analytical brain. I kind of like the challenge of figuring out. Okay, I'm going to make 13. I have like 12 or 13 different types of tinctures. Obviously I'm not going to keep that big of a product line. That's ridiculous. And so let's see which ones actually sell. What are people interested in? And I'm finding that people are really interested in the aromatherapy stuff, which makes sense because people are less familiar with herbal remedies, tinctures and salves. Like, well, how is this different than something you get in the store? I can understand that people aren't educated on that, but candles people like, right? And so like finding out this is what's selling, let me make more of that. And even with the candles, I have I started out with 5 fragrances that I've designed. These are my fragrances I've put together with essential oils. And I'm seeing, wow, okay, one is consistently not selling. So that makes me think, man, I'm going to pull back on wreaking more of that and throw in my seasonal one, right? And so, like, which ones are selling good and which ones are not. And I love that. I like that element of the risk, I guess. But I hate wasting money. And I think that idea drives me. I refuse to let this closet full of herbal supplies be a waste. So I need to actually use them and sell them, which means I need to actually be active at selling them so that they're not wasted. And that's a good thing. That's
Well,
going to
that's
push
a
us.
business mindset. Now, I do
Mm-hmm.
think that when I like, if I look at my scenario at the store, one of the things that was interesting is that when I was putting together the store, I recognized I have a huge interest in a variety of genres and authors, and so I already had a really good, diverse inventory. But I also recognized I'm super weak in a lot of areas, and how do you know what, whatever average Joe Jane they're going to want when they walk in the store? They're
Right.
looking for something.
Right.
And so, before we opened the store, or right when we were getting ready to do that, we went to this. It's a local, well, it's kind of in our neck of the woods, library sale where
Yeah.
they're not library books, but the library gets all these donations, and then they do this huge sale, and it's something ridiculous. The way the finances are super cheap. So we bought like a truckload of books because in just diverse genres, things that I never would have bought for myself.
That was kind of fun because,
It was
like,
very fun and it was very good. I mean, you're like pouring books into carts and bags because
we have very different taste on books too.
yes,
So we were able to go to different sections of this warehouse and just
yeah, it
pour,
was
pour,
awesome.
pour. It was awesome. Yeah.
So when I opened the store, I was pretty surprised at just how, full it was. But I do think there's a difference between the way that you look at your business and the way that which is our business, but and the way I look at the business, which is I'm okay if a book doesn't sell.
Right.
Like it could sit here for years and I'm okay because, I'll talk to it and we'll have
A
a
relationship with it. Yeah.
relationship and then
Well,
I'll be
there's an element of that with the herbal stuff because a lot of my products they're shelf stable, so they're made out of products that can sit. And candles, I think, they age a little bit and they get better to a certain point. 20-year-old candles are not that great, but so I'm not too worried about that. What I don't like is the things I don't want them sitting at my house. Right, the book sitting at your house even though you might be able to say, oh, I have that, I'll bring it in next time. But like,
Right.
I don't want things being unused at the house. I need them to be out there in in places, or at least being put on a booth somewhere. So I think that, so that is the mental shift, I think, for us is um yeah, recognizing that this is something that we both are interested in. We have our interests, we have the things that we love. Um, and how does that transition into business? And not everything does that. I don't think everything we love should be business, right? Some things that we love should be kept as just hobbies. But when do you make that shift from being a hobby to a business? And then how does that mentally shift for us is an important journey in the whole entrepreneurial. Am I saying that right?
Yeah.
Entrepreneur,
No. Yeah.
entrepreneurial, entrepreneur. The harder I try to say it, the harder
Yeah.
it is to say.
Yeah. I
I
mean, you
just feel
sound
like
like
my
you're having
tongue
a
gets in the way
stroke
on
at some point. So I will
this
say,
business journey.
yeah. I mean, I do think that you still want, and I would argue that I still have like the passion that stirred the flame of the hobby into a a greater flame. I mean, you still want to love what you do,
Oh,
right?
yes,
Right.
right. It still
Otherwise, if
should
it's
be.
just
Yeah,
becomes a job and you get lost in the
right,
like the mechanics of it, and I hate it. Now I got to make all these more candles. Like
right,
then you're in trouble
right.
because
That's right.
nobody wants to be in a job that they
Oh,
hate. And I
gosh.
do think some people are afraid, but if I step out and make my passion a job, am I going to lose the love?
I just heard in my audiobook I'm listening to by Dr. Daniel Amen, Amen, uh, psychiatrist, that literally staying in a job that you hate takes years off your life.
Huh. Well,
Years off your life.
yeah.
So, like, it's worth the risk, right? I think that that's something that we have learned all along in our marriage and our work together, that both of us need to be happy. We
Yes.
both need to be doing something that we love, whether it's me staying home with babies and you traveling. If we're both happy, then we'll make
Did you
it
have
work.
something you want to tell me?
Anyway, that is something that we have always we have always done, is both of us being happy, right? Because when we're happy, then our relationship is better. Like, we've struggled financially, but at least we're happy. And so for some of us, for some of you, maybe this transition of, I'm really miserable in my life, where can I make that next step? And this, maybe it is something where you're transitioning from a hobby and making that hobby into a business, kind of like we've done, and that we're going to continue to do, because this is not the last of our businesses. And that's why we're making a podcast, because we're crazy and we're going to keep expanding and trying to figure this out, right?
Right. I mean, if we're doing what we love and we're going to have all these extra years that we would have lost doing what we hated,
Right.
then we might as well
Certainly.
like go for it with the second act on entrepreneur,
Let's do it.
because we're gonna have all that time. Let's talk some more about the baby.
I'm going to hit him as soon as camera gets turned off.
Amen.
Thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching. Check us out on all the social media platforms. We got the Letter and Leaf Herbal. You can look at that on Instagram, and we got, of
And
course, the
TikTok,
letterandleaf.com.
which
And
the herbal products are in the process of getting put onto that
yeah,
website, and I'm in the process of starting a TikTok shop.
yeah. The good news is that we have help now. Miss Rebecca,
Yes,
she's
yes.
helping us out. So
Editing this video.
yep. So we're grateful for her, and hopefully you're going to see a lot more from us. We're going to see if our mics work, and if the dogs slurping and lapping and chewing is just too distracting. I mean, if it is, we're not going to change
We're
it.
not going to refilm
We don't have
this.
the energy.
Yeah. All right. Take care.